Hey everybody, it's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 14 4 key game picks. Before we get into picks for week number 14, let's get a quick rundown on the current playoff picture in the AFC and the NFC. Beginning in the AFC, going into week number 14, the Chiefs still currently hold the number 1 seed, the Bills are still the 2nd seed, the Steelers are still the 3rd seed, the Texans are still the 4th seed, the Chargers are the 5th seed at the moment, the Ravens are the 6th seed, and the Denver Broncos are currently holding that last playoff spot at the 7th seed. In the NFC, the Detroit Lions are still the 1st seed, the Philadelphia Eagles are still the 2nd seed, the Seahawks still currently hold the 3rd seed, the Falcons are the 4th seed, the Vikings are still the 5th seed at the moment, Green Bay is currently at the 6th seed, and Washington, the Commanders, are currently holding the last playoff spot at the 7th seed. Quick rundown on what happened in week number 13. If you're a Bears fan, you got to be finally thrilled that Eberflus finally got fired after that poor clock management they had against the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving Day when the Bears were in striking distance of obviously trying to overtake the Lions, but unfortunately Eberflus's bad clock management, or I don't know whose fault it may have been, but certainly Eberflus had to take the responsibility for the Bears, and obviously they screwed up, and he deserved to get fired. And I'm pretty sure a lot of Bears fans probably probably thrilled. Lions barely escaping a victory on that one here, and things are getting a little bit too close for comfort right now for the Detroit Lions, as the injuries are seriously piling up now. They had a few more during the Thanksgiving game, and this could not come now at a worse time now when they got the Green Bay Packers coming in for a big showdown on Amazon Prime's Thursday Night Football. That is going to be one of the key games I will get into after the whip around. When I look at some other games, Steelers got into a shootout with the Bengals despite them winning after they put up 40 points of their own. Obviously, the Bengals defense has been terrible all season, but you got to wonder about the Steelers defense. They gave up They gave up over 30 points to the Bengals, and you got to wonder now is some cracks are starting to show in that Steelers defense. If you're a Steelers fan, you're getting a little bit too close for comfort. And how about from Black Friday, the Chiefs escaping again with another close call when it looked like the Raiders had them on the ropes and it looked like they could have gone in for possibly the go-ahead field goal, but somehow penalties and obviously other bad clock management and whatever the Raiders did, they screwed themselves, shot themselves in the foot, and the Chiefs ended up winning. So right now, when I look at it right now, the Chiefs are the Chiefs are still, as much as everybody says now they're so vulnerable right now. To me, I kind of seen this before. Remember, you go back to Tom Brady's Patriots when it looked like certain years the Patriots looked vulnerable, but then all of a sudden they come and rise to the occasion in the playoffs, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl. So you got to wonder now if I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs right now, even though they look vulnerable, but I don't know. I feel like this is starting to become a troll job. They're starting to make things interesting, but then come playoff time, they show their dominance. And obviously, getting Pacheco back last week certainly helps their running game a lot. And he's going to be one of a key factor down the stretch for this Chiefs team to hold on to that number 1 seed, because the Bills are starting to fight. The Bills are only one game back of that number 1 seed. So things are getting a little interesting here. And when I look back at other games, I look at wow. Anybody who saw that game with Jacksonville and having Trevor Lawrence got seriously just almost decapitated. Obviously, that player on the Houston Texans, I forgot his name, got a 3-game suspension. Personally, I think he should have been suspended for the rest of the season because, my God, if you saw that hit on Trevor Lawrence, wow. I don't know how he got up after that. I don't know how he got up. But my God, his head was almost decapitated. It does boil down to the debate again. What is a clean hit and what is a dirty hit? But look, I personally, when I saw that replay so many times already, it did look intentional. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence trying to slide, and obviously he still got almost had his head chopped off. It's really a tough debate, but obviously that suspension, I really think that suspension should have been all season, because to me, it really looked like he wanted to kill Trevor Lawrence right there. It was brutal. Hopefully Trevor Lawrence can bounce back from this. Obviously, I'm just hoping that he will be healthy again, and obviously he given up a lot of himself and really just got punished on that play. I look at other factors I looked in. The Bills look dominant. The 49ers season pretty much is over. They look basically depleted now. Ed McCaffrey now is out for the season. And if you're a 49ers fan, that's just brutal. After coming off a Super Bowl appearance again, after appearing in the Super Bowl last year, pretty much your season's over. And now you got a lot of question marks going into the offseason now and whether or not this is the end for the 49ers run. Eagles dominated the Ravens. And now you got to wonder, now are the Eagles starting to become the team that may overtake Detroit for that number 1 seed? And they starting to look a bit dangerous. And obviously they're coming off an 8-game win streak. And even though they struggled at the beginning of the year, but this team, the Eagles are starting to look scary. Even though they don't have Graham on defense, though, they still look good. And you got to wonder about Baltimore. How is it really starting to look like they could collapse down the stretch? Tough to really say what will go on the rest of the way. Anyways, I'm going to end on that note. Let's begin with week number 14, shall we? All right, let's begin with key game number 1. It's the big one, the Thursday night game. It is the Packers versus the Lions. The Lions are a 3-point favorite and expect that number to go down much more. Jordan Love, 21 of 28, 274 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception in a big victory over the Dolphins on Thanksgiving night. Jared Goff was 21 of 34, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions in an escape win over the Bears. A lot of things now are going to boil down in this football game here. How much of the injuries that the Lions have occurred now in the last few games are going to really come back to bite them. And obviously there was a little bit of some off the field issue going on. I don't know if a lot of you have read this. A lot of you are saying that Jahmyr Gibbs putting up a social media post, possibly exposing some plays that the Lions had. And I was a bit shocked that Coach Campbell said that he doesn't give a rat's patoo. I don't know if I want to say something like that. I mean, you don't want to give any sort of plays to, especially to the Packers. The Packers have been red hot. It's been a while since they've lost. This is a team that is getting as close to equivalent to what the Lions have right now. And this is scary if you're a Lions fan. When you have all those injuries and the way that Packer offense has really just been lighting it up, this is scary, especially when you're trying to hold on to that number, when you're trying to stay ahead in that number 1 overall seed. You keep in mind, the Packers are not the only one that's behind them for the division, as well as the Vikings are. That NFC North is brutal right now. 3 of the 4 are competitive. They have almost double-digit wins on all 3 of the teams except the Bears. A lot of things are going to boil down to, can this Lion offense play much better than they did against the Bears? Because the Lions offense really slowed down last week against Chicago. And especially now when you got the Packers coming in when they're red hot, that is scary. You got Jacobs that's willing to run the ball and pound it. If their defense can't stop the run, obviously they're missing a lot of their key components. I really think now for the Detroit Lions, they really got to make it up in terms of trying to get some takeaways in terms of interceptions. Because really right now, it's going to boil down to the point now where the Lions are going to have to really grind this one out. It should be a good one in Detroit. These are practically 2 heavyweights going at it in this division. The Lions won the first meeting in Green Bay, but something tells me this is going to change in this football game. The Packers look a bit more healthy than the Lions do. And it pains me to say this if you're a Lions fan, and on the way the Lions have been playing up until this point now, going into Week 14, this might be an occasion where you might finally hit a brick wall on this one here. I like the Packers in this one. I'm picking the Packers because I think the Lions' injuries are now catching up to them. Coach Campbell really looked a bit depleted after that game against the Bears, and he knows the injuries are piling up. I think it's going to be hard to overcome this for this week for the Lions, especially right now. Their schedule does not get any easier, as well as the Packers. So, and when I look at this football game, I just think the Packers now have a slight edge going into this game, and I'm going to pick the Packers. I think the Lions will finally get their second loss here. The injuries are going to be too hard to overcome in this football game. I think the Packers win probably by a touchdown, and I think there's going to be some question marks going in after this football game now if the Lions lose this game. I'm going to pick the Packers here in a slight upset in this one here. I'm going to pick I forgot to give the odds makers on that. The Lions are a 3-point favorite, but I'm going to pick the Packers +3. I think they pull the upset here. I think the Lions have injuries. It's going to be hard to overcome. Packers over the Lions. Key game number 2, the Jets versus the Dolphins. Now, obviously, the only reason this is a key game is because of the Dolphins. The Dolphins are still trying to keep pace to try to get that last playoff spot. Tua for the Dolphins, And to look for the Dolphins in that loss against the Packers was 37-46, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, in a brutal loss against the Packers. Now, the Jets have had an even much more brutal loss than the Dolphins did. And obviously, pretty much their season is over. Aaron Rodgers was 21 of 39, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. The Jets are depleted. They are an absolute dumpster fire of a mess right now. They just cannot, even though they did score a lot more points against the Seahawks last week, looked like they showed some signs of life. But when you're playing against a pretty decent Miami offense here, and the way things are going right now for the Jets, I'm picking the Dolphins here at -6. The Dolphins are a 6-point favorite in this one here, and it probably might go down to 5.5. But I just think the Dolphins, they have the better offense. They're still trying to prove themselves right now to try to get that last playoff spot, and it's going to be tough because Denver still currently holds it, and Denver still holds sort of a tiebreaker. I think the Dolphins will definitely work the Jets in this one here. The Jets are depleted. They pretty much have quit. I don't really see any fight in this football team at all. I like the Dolphins in this one. The Dolphins should beat the Jets here. It might be close, but I think the Dolphins will probably win by 10 or something like that. The Jets are just a mess. So this is kind of an easy pick right here, and it is a key game because the Dolphins are trying to keep pace for that last playoff spot in the AFC. I'm going to pick the Dolphins at -6. Dolphins over the Jets. Key game number 3, going to the NFC West. An important matchup between the Seahawks and the Cardinals. The Seahawks still currently hold first place at the moment. And Seattle did beat Arizona in the first meeting. This is the second meeting between these two teams. Now for Arizona, this now put up time for Arizona to try to really keep pace with the Seahawks here. Geno Smith was 20 of 31, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Kyle Murray in a loss against the Vikings was 31 of 45, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, but he was also picked off 2 times in that game against the Vikings. I have to look at a couple key opponents here. Look, Seattle really had to come from behind against the Jets. I'm starting to wonder now, what are you getting out of this Seattle Seahawks team? They did a good job against Arizona. It was in Seattle though, and then they had to really come from behind against the Jets in order to beat them. And the Cardinals basically almost beat the Vikings here. They started showing some signs of life after losing to Seattle 2 weeks ago. And now I just think it boils down to maybe home field advantage might play a role in this game, but I don't think it's going to matter here. The question marks for the Arizona Cardinals here, is their offense finally clicking? Because they really got into a game last week against the Vikings, and then 2 weeks ago they had no offense at all against Seattle. And for Seattle, are they going to have to come and play from behind? Especially this is an important matchup, especially right now. The NFC West is still wide open. Obviously, I'm counting out the 49ers now because I think they're finished. But you still got the Rams not far behind them. I think for Kyle Murray, he's going to have to really work hard in this game in order to beat the Seahawks. He's got to be out there mobile. He's got to make some plays. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s got to get involved. And Connor really has to provide that pounding, that hard smash mouth running game that really, because look, Seattle really doesn't have much of a running game, and really Geno Smith has had to throw the ball a lot more than running it. And you got to wonder right now when you look at this football game here, is Seattle gonna be more? It's still gonna be consistent. They had to come from behind against the Jets. I think it's gonna turn around in this game. I think the Cardinals, do win this one here. I think, look, you don't know what you're going to get out of the Seahawks here. They've really been inconsistent the last few games. You don't know if they're gonna dominate they dominate 1 week and then they lay an egg in another week. I think for the Cardinals, they know that they're going to be more of the desperate team in here, and they know full well they could be out of playoff contention because really they can only win the division right now just to get into the playoffs. But I think the Cardinals offense will get it going here. I'm going to pick the Cardinals at -2 to beat the Seahawks here. Cardinals over the Seahawks. And finally, key game number 4, going into the AFC West, it is the Chargers versus the Chiefs. It's the second meeting this season between these two teams. The Chiefs won the first meeting, but during that game, this was the game at SoFi that Pacheco got hurt. Now that Pacheco's back, that running game now is going to really help Mahomes. Mahomes was 26 of 46, 306 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, in an escape victory over the Raiders. Chargers really barely beat the Falcons last week, 17-13. Justin Herbert was 16 of 23, 147 yards, no touchdown interceptions. The defense really was the factor in that game against the Falcons, which really there was a pick six that the defense was able to get off of Cousins, and now you got to boil down to the point. Now this is where things are going to get interesting. Now the Chiefs are a 4-point favorite, and I would say that's about right. It's now put up or shut up time now for the Chargers because they're barely clinging on to that number 5 spot. Baltimore is still going to make a move, and the Chargers still have to play Denver one more time, and that could be even more crucial for them if they're going to hang on to any sort of playoff spot. The offensive line of the Chargers looks depleted. Herbert really got sacked a lot last week against the Falcons, and when really the Falcons don't have that many pass rush. And really, the Charger defense just hasn't been able to get to Cousins. Even hasn't been able to get much to the quarterback. Now, they did get Cousins about 3 times last week, but they're going to have to find a way to get to Mahomes here. I'm going to pick the Chiefs here because I don't think the Chargers have enough to beat the Chiefs to slow them down, because the Chiefs defense is good. Look, if the Chargers obviously had a bad offensive line throughout the last few seasons, and obviously that defense that Spagnuolo has, they are definitely going to get to Herbert in this football game. The Chiefs should win this one here. I just think the Chargers don't have enough to beat them. Their defense is going to have to really step up in this game in order to stop the Chiefs' offense here. But I don't think they have enough, especially if I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Pacheco, because Pacheco's really a very strong back, and he's been a huge factor, especially in that Super Bowl run last year for the Chiefs. It's going to be hard for the Chargers to overcome this. I like the Chiefs in this one here. It pains me to say that as a Chargers fan. I'm going to be cheering for the Chargers, of course, but to be realistic here, the Chiefs I think it's going to be a close game. I could see this being a close game, but the Chiefs are just a bit better in here. I think the Chiefs will keep on rolling. I'm going to pick the Chiefs at -4, Chiefs over the Chargers. All right, everybody, please check the description below for all of my Week 14 picks, and I will talk to you guys next week when I make my picks for Week number 15, everybody. See you all next week. Take care and enjoy your football weekend.